Hello everyone, welcome to this video on the GRE Scoring System. This video is the third part of our GRE Diagnostic course brought to you by Learning Made Easy team, a team of IIM grads in association with our e-learning partner GTCUBE Get to the Top. If you are watching this video in the YouTube channel, do check out our full-length course available for free at gtcube.com/store where you'll get to watch these videos as part of the course. So let's get started. So most of the students have a big misunderstanding with how the GRE scoring system works. So let's look at a basic thing first. The AVA section, the analytical writing section, is graded between 0 to 6. That's the minimum and the maximum score. The quantitative reasoning section, you will be getting as a minimum score 130 and the maximum one can get is 170. The verbal reasoning, same, 130 is the minimum and 170 is the maximum. So 130 plus 130, 260 is the minimum score a person can get in the GRE, and 170 plus 170, 340 is the maximum score a person can get. So AVA score will be given separately from 0 to 6. So let's focus on this first. I'll talk about AVA a little bit later. So what most of the students think is this. There will be 40 questions, 20 questions in each section. That's basically 40 questions. And I see a difference of 40 points, right? 170 minus 130 is 40 points. So if I attempt an exam, I get 15 questions correct in both the sections. I should be getting 15 points added to my 130 and my score should be 145 in the quant. And let's assume I got 25 correct in my verbal, and so that should be giving me 25 points. So I should be getting 130 plus 25. I should be getting 155 in my verbal. The 145 plus 155 will turn out to be 300, and this should be my score in the exam, which is absolutely wrong. This is not how the GRE scores a candidate. We'll discuss about that later, but the most important thing you need to understand is this. Each question is not equal to the point that you will get in the GRE exam. That's not correct. It's true that you don't have a negative marking in GRE, so that's not going to affect your score in a negative way. If a candidate gets 10 questions correct in two sections, quant, let's say first and second section, he attempted all the 20, he got 10 wrong, 10 correct in the first section, 10 right and 10 wrong in the second section. There's another candidate who attempted only 15 questions in both the sections, 10, 15, 15 each. He got 10 correct and 5 wrong and 10 correct and 5 wrong. They both will still get the same score, assuming everything else is the same, right? So what I'm trying to drive is this, that there is no negative marking. So there is no reason for us to avoid attempting any question. Even if you are not sure of it, if there's only 1 second and you can mark an answer, just blindly guess it. There's at least 25% probability, if there are only 4 options, that you might get something positive out of it. The AVA scores are basically between 0 to 6 and they will be graded in the 0.5. 0 scale, like intervals 0, 0.5, 1, 1.5 and so on up to 5.5 and 6. So each essay is graded by two people, e-rater, that's a computer, and a person, and if the scores rated by both of them are almost same, they'll take average of both and they will round it off to the nearest 0.5. If a person has rated your essay 4 and the e-rater has rated 4.5, or assume 5, the average is 4.5. That's what you will get as your score. If a person has rated you 4 and the e-rater has rated you 0, there's a huge discrepancy. Then they will use the second person to rate it and use that as a score to give the final score. Right? That's how the AVA scores are done. So you'll get 0, 0.5, 1 and so on up to 5.5 and 6. That would be the range of scores a person can get. So let's get deeper into the section, the reasoning and the quantitative and the verbal part, so that you understand how the scoring system works. So let's look at a quantitative reasoning section. The first thing you need to understand is this: GRE is an adaptive exam. Based on how you perform in the first section, the second section is generated differently for each candidate. So the first section would be a medium section. That is, the difficulty level of the questions would be at a medium level. When I say that, you will have a mix of easy, medium and hard questions. That will be mix of all three. So GRE, gives a difficulty rating of 1 to 5 for each question. So let's assume a 1 to 2 is for easy question, 3 for the medium and 4 to 5 are the hard questions. you will see a mix of easy, medium and hard. So the average rating of all the questions would be closer to 3. That's the medium rating. That's the first section. Based on how good you perform in the first section, when I say how good, how many questions you get correct, the second section would be generated. So the rule is this: if you get 14 to 20 correct out of 20, your second section would be hard. That is, the average difficulty rating of all the questions that you will get in the second section would be between 4 to 5 approximately. When it comes to the first section and someone got 7 to 13 correct out of 20, they will be getting again a medium section generated. They'll start off with the medium, that's common for everyone. Based on how many you get correct, right? 14 to 20 correct, 7 to 13 correct will give you again another medium section, right, with the average rating about 3. And if you get less than 7 correct, right, 0 to 6, then you will get an easy section for the second section of quantitative reasoning. The average rating of all the questions together will be approximately 1 to 2. So the good news and the bad news is this, that if you do well in the first 2 sections, the average difficulty of the second section is higher, right? If I do very good in the first section, I am getting a harder one, which sounds bad compared to getting an easier section. But that's actually good news, not a bad news. If you are getting a harder section, you're doing great in the exam and your score would be much better at the end. It's much better to end up with a hard section than easy section, trust me on that. Right? If you are able to generate the hard section, it means you are someone who can actually do good in the hard as well, and your score would be much better than getting an easy section. I'll give an example. Let's assume there's a candidate 1 and there's a candidate 2. The first section of quant, let's assume that he got 14 correct. So what will he get in the second section? He'll get a hard one, right? Because he got 14 to 20 correct. So let's assume he got only 6 correct in the second section. How many did he get on the whole? 20, right? 20 correct. Let's assume there's another candidate who got only 6 correct in the first section, which is the medium section, which basically made him get an easy section in the second section. And let's assume he got all 14 correct out of 20. His net score is 20, right? Whom do you think will get a better score, or would both of them get the same score in quant? No. The candidate 1 will get, let's say, approximately something around 152 to 155. And candidate 2 will get approximately 144 to 147. Now, it's very difficult to predict the exact score because the GRE does not use the raw score directly, that is how many questions you got correct. They also look at each of the question, the difficulty of the question. Even though I say medium section is what they generate for everyone, average rating of all the questions will not be same for everyone. I might get 3, someone might get 3.2. So they use the database of all the applicants who attempted the same question and how many of them got it correct or wrong, and they sort of adjust to it using some statistics. So let's not get into that deeper. Even we do not know everything about that. That's like their black box and that's their USP basically. Sort of a good understanding for us is this, that I got 20 correct, 14 correct in the first section and 6 correct in the next section. That should be basically giving me 130 plus 20, 150 for someone who is not very sure or aware of the scoring system. But what we're going to get is something 152 to 155. See, I'm getting 2 to 5 marks more, 2 to 5 points more than what a default scoring system looks like. 20 correct should give me 20 points, so 130 plus 20, 150. As I said, getting a harder section will give you bonus and medium will also give you slight bonus. Getting a easy section, even though I got 20 correct, but what is my score? 144 to 147. I am actually bound to get 130 plus 20 correct should give me 150, but I am getting a negative, like I am getting a penalty and I am ending up with 144 to 147 as my score. See, that's why it's very important for us to actually do well and make sure that we end up in first 2 parts. That is whether I should land up with a hard or medium section in my second section. That should be your minimum target irrespective of what your final score is. Trust me, if you end up with getting a easy section as your second section in quant or verbal, your chances of getting a good score is very, very low. Very, very low. Trust me on that. So it's really good for us to target at least 7 correct in the first section so that I'll end up with the medium and hard. Even if I do 7 correct in the first and 7 correct in the second, this is much better than getting 6 correct and 10 correct in the second. This will be easy, this will be medium, this is still much better, and that's going to give you a better score than getting 6 correct and 10 correct. Trust me on that. So the target that each one of us should have is this, that make sure that I at least get 7 plus correct. If it's your weaker area, if it's a stronger area, I should target for this harder one. Right? Don't take it as a negative thing. That's actually a good thing if you are getting a harder section. That means you're doing good and you should work even more to push your score to 160s, 165s, etc. To just give you a sense of it, let's look at a sample scorecard for quantitative reasoning sections. As I said, these are the 4 areas: arithmetic, algebra, geometry, data analysis. You see 8 questions, 3, 5, 4. If you remember if you have seen the earlier video, I said in the exam pattern 4 to 6, 4 to 6, 3 to 5 and 6 to 8. Again here I see 6, I see 4, I see 4 and I see 6 here. As I said, you never can guess the exact number of questions from each area. There will be plus or minus couple of questions here and there, so do not try to figure out, okay, these areas are more important, I'll skip the unimportant sections or something like that. Now, this is the first section. You see the average difficulty, as I said, right, difficulty level of each question is rated from 1 to 5, 3, 3, 3, 4, etc. Right? Let's find the average of all these 30 questions. 3 plus 3, 6, 9, 13, 22, 25, 28, 31, 35, 36, 38, 41, 42, 44, 47, 50, 55, 58, 61, 65. 65 by 20 questions. This is approximately 3.25. Now this is the difficulty rating, average difficulty rating of the entire section, which is closer to the medium. How many did this candidate get correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 correct out of 20, which means what should be the difficulty level of this? Hard. Let's look at the difficulty level of the second section. 2 plus 3, 5, 9, 13, 17, 22, 26, 30, 34, 38, 42, 46, 51, 56, 59, 63, 68, 70, 72, 75. 20, this will be 3.75. This is closer to the 4. We see the difficulty level has changed, right? From the medium to slightly on the harder side. There is still sometimes people will get an average difficulty rating of 4, 4.2 as well. Again, as I said, that's gonna be covered by the GRE. Don't worry if you get something on the higher, harder difficulty. The GRE will make sure that they equate it so that even if you get slightly 1 or 2 questions wrong, you'll still get a better score. So that's taken care. Don't worry about the scoring system beyond a point. It's not going to be unfair. They'll make sure that using the statistics, they do sort of play with that and make sure it's a fair game for everyone. Even if it's not in our hands. Let's just try to be the best we can do so that we optimize our scores. Let's see how many this candidate get this correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 out of 20 are correct. Height. So this candidate has gotten 17 and 18 correct. So his score should be 165 plus. He should be at the higher level. So 166, 167, 17 correct and 18 correct. So the candidate's overall quantitative reasoning score would be approximately 166, 167. So that's a very good score out of 170 if a person is getting. As I said, see, he got 35 correct. So 130 plus 35, it's not 165. He'll get slightly more than that because he has generated a harder section. He should be getting a bonus. It will be like 166, 167 for him. That should be his final score. Let's look at an estimator. This is something based on our experience, based on data from different sources we have picked. Let's target a score and then understand how many questions should I get correct so that I can prepare according to that. So if your target score is 168 to 170, you should aim to get 19 to 20 correct in the first section and also the second section. 165 plus, 17 plus and 17 plus in the first section and second. If you see the earlier case, we said this candidate got 17 correct and 18 correct, his score will be 165 plus, which is what you should be aiming for if you are looking at 165 plus. 160 plus get 14 to 15 correct in the first and again 14 to 15 correct in the second. That's a minimum. The more the correct you have, you'll get 163, 164. If I get 16 correct, I'll get 165 or 164. That's how it's gonna be. So let's look at as a minimum correct thing that you need to do. It's good to aim for slightly higher than that. 155 plus, get 12 plus correct in both. There's a also possibility that I get 10 correct here and I get 15 correct here, which will still land me up something similar to getting 12 correct and 13 correct. Similar, slightly similar, because 10 to 12 correct will still give me a medium section, and I'm getting 15 correct, 13 correct. Pretty much I would get plus or minus 1 to 2 points, 1 point here and there, I should get the same score. So this is an approximation of, if you see it, we're getting 12 plus 10, 10. Not that you need to get 10 and 10 exactly correct in both the sections. You get 9 correct here and 11 to 12 correct here, still you land up with 150 plus. Right? These are just an benchmark or sort of a rule of thumb for you to aim for. Let's say my target is 160 in quant, so I should get at least 15 correct in both sections. Aim for this. Better you do, the higher the score will be. 145 plus, get 7 to 8 correct in both sections. If you get less than 7 here, right, you will be getting an easy section. It will be a big uphill task for you to get 145 plus. Let's say I need to get at least 14 correct or 12 correct to get a 145 plus, which is a difficult thing, right? Even if I can get 1 to 2 more correct, that will give me much easier way to get 145 plus. So that's why I don't want to talk beyond less than 145. Here, at least the minimum target, irrespective of where you are, what your background is, what you're looking at, should be 145 plus. Even if quant is your weaker area and you're not from a math background, it's a great school grade math, and I'm very confident that every one of us can actually pick it up and score 145 plus. Right? I'm not saying it's easy for everyone to score 160, but 145 is something that's very much possible within a short period of time, within weeks of time. Depending on how many hours you can put, you can definitely get that. So let's target at least 145 plus. There's no point in looking at less than that. Right? Let's look at verbal part. Something similar. The only difference is in verbal, you start with the medium. In verbal, if you get 12 to 20 correct, you'll go to the harder one. Verbal is slightly difficult one. If you look at the average scores released by ETS last 3 years, I think 2014 to 2017, when I said last 3 years, there's a report. The average verbal score was 150.5 and the average quant score was 152.8. You see, people are getting 2 to 2.5 points more in quant than verbal. So it's very difficult to score in verbal as compared to quant. So that's why even if you get 12 to 20 correct, right? If you remember quant, you need to get 14 and above to get to harder section. Even if you get 12, 13 correct in the verbal, you'll still generate a harder one, which is a good thing. If you get something around 6 to 12 correct, you'll get a medium. Less than that, 0 to 5, will get a easier section. Again, depending on how you do in these two, you'll land up your final score. Let's again look at two candidates. Candidate 1, candidate 2. Section 1, he scored 14 correct. Section 2, that will be a harder section. So let's assume he got 6 correct. He'll get 20 correct. Reverse of it, 6 correct in the first section, 14 correct, that's going to be easy section. He got 20 correct. As we have seen in the quant, his score will be more than the second candidate, even though both of them got the same number of correct. If you remember in the quant, we said a candidate will get 152 to 155 in this. Whereas in verbal, he'll get slightly more. If you remember, as I said, the average scores are less in verbal as compared to quant. So if you get the same number of questions correct, you generally bound to get more points in the verbal as compared to the quant. That's because the difficulty level of verbal is high, so the number of people who get the higher scores is less. So if I get 20 correct, 14 correct in the first section and 6 correct in the second section in the quant, I will end up with this score. With the same performance, I will end up with slightly more in the verbal. That's the point I'm trying to drive here. If you look at this example, if you remember the quant, we discussed that we'll get up 140 to 147. The verbal would give him slightly more, 146 to 148. Right? An approximate, understanding like plus 1 to 2 points more. If I get the same number of correct in quant, I'll get as compared to verbal, I'll get 1 to 2 points less in quant. Or if I get the same number of questions correct, I'll get 1 to 2 points more in verbal as compared to the quant. Right, that's the thing. So as I said, again the key point here is I should at least get 6 to 7 correct in the verbal, so that I get a medium on the hard section and I avoid the easy section. So this I'll have a better score in my verbal section as well. So let's look at the same sample scorecard for verbal reasoning sections. So if you see the average difficulty, as I said, reading comprehension, the longer passage you see 7 questions, the shorter passage has 3 questions. Whereas in the other section, you have only 3 longer questions in longer passage and have 7 questions in the shorter passage. As I said, the sum will be 10, but we cannot guess if it's going to be more number in the longer passage or the shorter passage. And 6 questions in the text completion and 4 in the sentence equivalence. That's also fixed. Let's look at the difficulty level average. 2 plus 2, 4, 7, 10, 13, 17, 22, 26, 30, 34, 37, 40, 43, 47, 51, 55, 58, 62, 66 and 70. That will be approximately 3.5. How many did he get correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 correct out of 20. So he or she should be getting a medium section in the second section as well. Let's look at the average. 10, 11, 13, 15, 17, 21, 25, 30, 33, 36, 39, 42, 45, 48, 52, 56, 60, 64. Right? Almost the same difficulty level, medium and medium. Right? So, how many did he or she get correct here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So, totally the candidate got 16 correct out of the 20. So his final score should be somewhere around 147 to 150. That's an approximate level that he or she should be in. They got 16 correct because they generated medium. They'll have a slight advantage. Maybe 147 to 148 is a better estimator. Might not go up to 150. Somewhere around 147, 148. Right? Imagine this, that a person got 5 correct in the first section, pulled it back and got 12 correct in the second section. That's basically 17 correct. Despite that, the person's score will be less than 145. As compared to this, where the person got 9 correct plus 7 correct, that's 16 correct, he would still end up with 147, 148. Whereas the person who got 5 and 12 correct, that's 17 correct, one more than this candidate, he will still have a score less than 145. He'll have around 143, 144 or something like that. See, that's the difference that I'm talking about. So always aim for at least getting 6 to 7 correct in a verbal section in the first section and 7 to 8 correct in the quant section, so that you'll generate a medium or the harder one, and that would boost your score rather than getting a penalty. So again, an estimator for us to understand so that we can target. As I said, in verbal, slightly lesser number of questions are good enough for you to get a better score. 18 to 20, if you do correct, you should land up with 168 to 170. For 165 plus, target 15 and 15. For 160 plus, target 13 correct in both sections. 155 plus, 10 to 11 correct in both. And 150 plus, you should get 8 to 9 and 8 to 9. And 145 plus, get 7 plus in both. If you get 7 and 7 correct, that's like 14 correct out of 40. That should give you 145, 146 maybe, approximately in that range. If you get 7 plus 8 correct, 1 point more, something like that. Right, so this is an approximate estimator. Do make sure that you look at this table and have a target score and keep in mind how many questions should I get correct in both. As I said in the quantitative, again, not necessary you should get 15 correctly here. I might get 13 here, I can get 17 correct here. That would still give me a 165, 164 sort of a score. More you get correct in the first section, better it is always, because that's going to generate a harder section and you're bound to get slightly less number correct in the second section, but still your score will be slightly better than getting lesser in the first and more in the second. So what is a good GRE score? This is something that we very often listen or get to hear from the students. So what is the best score or what is a good score I should look at? The simple answer for this is it depends. It depends on your target school, target program. It depends on how much if an importance is given to that, the GRE score by this university or the program. So an engineering program would definitely look at the quant score with a slightly better, advantage, or rather I would say they will look at it with a better focus as compared to the verbal. Maybe if you're applying for a different program, they might have a better importance given or more importance given to the verbal as compared to the quant. So you just have to be, and also the overall score, if you look at the batch profiles for let's say Harvard, Stanford, they would put the median score to be 325, 330, which means 325, 330 is pretty much an achievable score for many candidates, but they do not get admission into them because the value given to GRE score is not the ultimate thing. That's just a parameter. If you look at the top schools like Harvard, Stanford, they might put up a batch profile for a program saying that the median score is 325. That means 50% of the accepted students have scored less than 325. Does that mean that if I get 330, I'll get admission into Harvard or Stanford for that program? Not necessarily. GRE score is a criteria. I would rather call it as, a minimum thing that you need to score. There are many other things they look at, their profile. When I mean by profile, your past acads, how good you have performed in your life till now in academics, if you have done any research work, depends on the program which you're applying for. Also letters of recommendation, SOPs and all of that, right? You never know what's being appreciated by the admission panel. So all of these are very important for you to get into a good school. GRE is also an important thing to get into a good school. So what is a good score? It depends on the program you are applying for. Is 330 good? Maybe not for certain programs. Is 330 good? More than enough for most of the programs. Right? It just depends on what you are aiming for and what you're targeting for. So look at those batch profiles and get an idea of what's a required score so that you can look at that. What I would say is 325 to 330 is good enough for most of the programs. You have to focus on the rest of the things to actually get an admit into that school. You might not be having a negative effect because you have scored less than 330 for most of the programs, almost all the programs. But I would say 305 to 310 should be your basic target irrespective of what you're looking at. I know there are quite a few programs and quite a few schools which accept scores less than 300, 290, 280. I'm not saying that it's not possible to get into a school and a program. What I'm trying to say is it's much better to get into a good school with a better GRE score. Even if you're getting a same school with a better GRE score, you have a good chance to get a scholarship or aid that would help you to cut down the costs that you have to bear while you pursue your masters. So at least a 305, 310 is a target that I would count as a good score. So just give an absolute sense, let's look at the percentiles. So these are the scores and the percentile. So percentile, what do I mean by that? If you do not know that, if there are 100 people who have taken an exam, the topper would have scored 99 percentile. That means 99 people out of 100 have scored less than this guy. If I score 50 percentile, what do I mean by that? My score is better than the 50 candidates who have taken the exam. That's basically the percentile. If you see the quantitative reasoning, full 170 out of 170 scored by almost 4% of the candidates who take the exam. Out of every 100 people, 3 people are scoring more than that. So 4 people are scoring full. So 96 people are scoring less than 170. Whereas in verbal, it's only one. Basically, not everyone is scoring the same. It's only 1 out of 100 is the topper. So there is a clear difference in that. If you see 165 is scored by 12 out of every 100 people and above. And verbal, when it comes, only there are 4 and people are scoring 165 and above. That sort of a thing you see. When I say 305 to 310, you see it will be in this range. Let's look at this. 155. 58 people are scoring less than 155 and 69 people are scoring less than 155. So that means approximately out of every 100 candidates, you should be in the range of top percentile wise. I would put you somewhere around 65 to 75 percentile. If you score 155 plus 155, that's 310 is your GRE score. That will put you in the 65 to 75 percentile. That means you have scoring better than the 65 to 75 candidates out of every 100. That's pretty much achievable. If you look at the middle one, 50 percentile, that's a median. It should be somewhere in this 150 plus 150 zone. Slightly more than that. If you ask me, how many people score 300, 150 plus 150, that should be approximately 50 percentile. That's why, as I said, 305 to 310 is a score that every one of us should target as a minimum. Right? If you have higher aspirations, if you have a better ability, or if you're looking at better schools, 325, 330, higher the score, better it is. See, there is never a chance that a higher GRE score will hamper your chance of getting into a good school. The lower the score, there is always a chance it might hurt you in a negative way. Not necessarily true, it depends. But higher the score, better it is always. It will never ever affect you in a negative way. Lower the score, there's a good chance it might affect you in a negative way. You might have a good profile, but if you have applied for Harvard, you have a very good profile and the candidates are much better with respect to GRE score when you compare your score with the others. Let's say I scored 300 and my profile is really good for Harvard. Let's assume there's some way to quantify it and I get a very good score in my profile, but because of my poorer GRE score, there's a good chance that I might not get an admit. It has to be extraordinarily well to get an admit despite a poorer GRE score. But if I have a good GRE score with a good profile, not necessarily the top of the top profile, very good profile, that still gives me a good chance to get into a school. That's why a good GRE score, I would say, don't ever aim less than 300, irrespective of what program you're looking at. And trust me, getting 300 is pretty much doable, irrespective of your native speaker, non-native speaker, you are from a math background, you are not from a math background, with few hours of effort. When I say few hours, let's say hundreds of hours, 100, 200 hours of effort maybe, depending on what your ability is, maybe 300, 400 hours as well, you can pretty much land up a 300 plus score. So do not aim anything less than that, and that should be a good target to have. Depending on the programs you are targeting, you can also have a higher aim, higher targets. Higher the target, better it is. Do not ever settle for a lower targets. So thank you for watching this video. If you're watching this video in the YouTube channel, do check out our full-length courses available for free at gtcube.com/store. Do like our partners Facebook page, facebook.com/gtcube3. You'll get a lot of updates that will help you in your GRE preparation. Thank you for watching this video and let's meet in the next video.